Let me introduce the next speaker, Professor Federica Visconti from Naples.
Lecture. It will be architecture, archaeology, and the city. North is yours.
Thank you. Okay. Yes. Thank you very much. Okay. Perfect. I'm really happy to be again in Krakow, and in some way I think the theme of the conference of this year, Architecture and the City, is for the Italian architects something special, because the title recall immediately the book by Aldo Rossi, The Architecture of the City. Well, I decided to add a apparently foreign word between architecture and city, and the word is archaeology. And I would like to talk about archaeology in two different ways. I think archaeology is a lesson for architecture, and I think archaeology is a theme for architects. And I would like to talk about this subject using probably one of the most famous archaeological cities in the world, that is Pompeii. Starting from this idea that we need to look at the past with an eye that is not innocent. We need to talk at archaeology thinking at what we want to produce for the contemporary city. And this is the reason why I think archaeology is an important lesson for architects. This is a very famous painting by Fuseli. The title is The Despair of an Artist Facing the Greatness of the Ancient Ruins. Probably the artist is so sad because the big statue is collapsed. But I would like to interpret the title of this painting in a different way. I think he is so sad because he feels that it's very difficult to be great as the ancient has been. But the second image, I think architecture is a discipline optimistic for its nature, because we look at the future. And so, this is a contemporary sculpture, but what it is interesting for me is that the title is a famous aphorism by Bernardo de Chartres, like the harvest on giant shoulder. So if we use the past as our giant and we reach the shoulder of the giant, we can look forward and probably produce better architecture. So Pompeii, a lesson of architecture of the city. This is really important. It is a lesson of architecture, but I think especially a lesson of architecture of the city, because there is in the ancient city, more than in the contemporary city, three features that are very relevant. Probably the first one is that the ancient city is always built in a strict relationship with the form of the ground. And the second one is the interscalarity of the ancient city. In this sense, I think Pompeii demonstrates that there is a very strict relationship between the general forma urbis, the form of the city, the form of the insula, that is the elementary part of the city, and the form of the house. And obviously, the vice versa is true. Why it is interesting to study an archaeological city and not only a living city? Because we have this opportunity in the archaeological context. We can observe from above not only the roof plan, but the typological map. The state of ruins of the archaeological city show the structure of the city in a more deep way than in the living city. So this is Pompeii, probably it is well known. And this is exactly what we can see, the typological map. And what we can understand from the typological map. Okay, this is a Strassenbau, so a road map, that try to put in evidence the structure of the city in the relationship with the form of the soil. You can see the level curves and in its evolution. But probably more interesting is the figure background plan that, okay, in red we had the not excavated part of Pompeii that show that Pompeii is a dense city where all the buildings are aligned along the street and completely fill in the block. But there is another character, this is the historical evolution, that Pompeii is a dense, compact city, but also a porous city, full of holes inside the structure. And this is exactly related to the relationship between urban morphology and building typology, because we have the courtyard and the patio house as the typical building typology of the city. This is another way of analysis that was invented by a friend of many of us, that is Uwe Schröder of the University of Aachen in Germany. And this is called the red-blue plan. And it is related to the idea that we need to understand the city not only in the typological map, in the bidimensional condition, but also in the three-dimensional condition. So red spaces are spaces that have a character of interior space, while blue space are spaces that have a character of exterior space. And also this kind of analysis is an interscalar analysis, because at another scale, two different gradations of red appears. And so dark red is interior spaces, like this one, with 4 boundary and a roof, while light red spaces are exterior spaces and are obviously squares, street, but also courtyard, patio, and this define the porous structure of the city and also the richness of the spatiality of an ancient city. So in an interscalar path from the form of the city to the form of the insula, we can imagine how the city was settled in the past, starting from the road plan that in the Roman city is frequently based on a block of 35 meters by 110. 35 is a very special, important, relevant measurement that explains the relationship between the form of the house and the form of the insula, because this was probably the originary settlement with what we call domus elementare on an enclosure of 35 meters by 18 meters, and the house based on the north line of the enclosure in order to face the south. Obviously, there is an exception on the main street because when a street is more important, it is interesting to have the entrance of the house from the main street, so the house rotated. And here we have, following the theory by Gianfranco Caniggia, the idea of how the urban fabric of the Pompeii block evolved. And so we can see the interscalarity, especially in this insula, that is the insula of the tragic poet, where the house of the tragic poet is. And this is the demonstration of this theory, because on the drawing of the insula, we can see that the house that we imagine is the product of the process of evolution of the building typology is exactly the house of the tragic poet in some way, obviously in abstraction in some way. This is the house as it was discovered. Many travelers thought that archaeology is a lesson, and so they very often try to imagine the house in the original aspect, even if we could say in some way this is not only an imaginary reconstruction but also a project for the future. This is the house today after a restoration in the 60s that decided to restore the original spatiality of the house, and so we can walk through the sequence of interior-exterior spaces that is typical of the Roman house, through the atrium, and looking at the peristelium, where you can see that the small temple is not exactly in the middle. This is a strange thing, but is based on the idea that the plot is not exactly orthogonal, and it was necessary to see the temple as the final point of an axis and of a sequence. This is the peristelium, this is a reconstruction, and this is an image to say that the ancient house can be really understood if we can see in the same way the map and the section, because yes, we have the sequence of spaces from the entrance through the atrium, tablinum and peristelium, but in the section we can appreciate that there is a dynamic sequence, because we have a sequence of space that are small in section, not very high and without light, and then the space enlarge itself in the atrium and in the peristelium looking at the sky. Okay. This is an axonometry from below that show in the same moment the plan and the space. Le Corbusier understood very well the Roman house. Those are sketches of 1911, and he decided to draw only the system of a void, not the room all around, because he understood that the typology of the Roman house in some way could be defined as a house built around a void. And I think why archaeology has a lesson, because I think that in some houses by Le Corbusier, in a contemporary way, in a completely modern way, the idea of this sequence of spaces in between interior and exterior are the theme of Le Corbusier composition. It is a lesson, and I try to explain this subject also to my students. This is an exercise of a student of the first year of an architectural design studio. I asked them to, I assigned them a plot extracted by the insula of the tragic poet, and asked them to design a contemporary patio house, and then we rebuilt a kind of abstract, ideal, analogous insula, probably you can recognize the house, the 3-courtyard house by Miss van der Rohe, but also below on the left, an house that is redesigned looking at the ancient house of the tragic poet. So it's not a problem of chronology, the idea that the past can be used as lesson for contemporary architecture. Exercise of the students. So obviously the city is not made only of houses, but also of urban public spaces. Again, Le Corbusier understood obviously this thing. Other sketches of roads and of public spaces in Pompeii. This is a very interesting drawing by Le Corbusier because he said that not innocent eye. Le Corbusier rebuilt the columns of the Temple of Jove and wrote, I rebuilt the columns because I need to understand the space. I don't look at the archaeology as a ruins. I look at archaeology as lesson of architecture. The forum in Pompeii, the rectangular forum and many images. The triangular forum, different kind of urban spaces. This is the cover of the book that I published some year ago with all this subject, but in 3 minutes I want to show you a project made in a workshop with the students together with Renato Capozzi on Pompeii, because archaeology is not only a lesson but also a theme for architects. This is the cover. Within an international activity of a blended intensive program with the University of Germany, Austria and Netherlands. Different groups work on the south boundary of the archaeological city. This is our area of project, so the south boundary between the archaeological city and the contemporary city. The form of the soil. Here you can see the difference between the archaeological city that is clear in its structure and what happened out of the boundary of the archaeological city, where we can recognize the same clarity of form in the contemporary city. And so there is this margin, this board that is strictly related to the most important public space in the archaeological city, the Roman Forum, the Triangular Forum, the big gym with amphitheater. Again, the red-blue plan, so the city of interior spaces in the archaeological area, and a city that, yes, is more related to the open space, but where the open space is not the structure of the city, but only residual area. And so this is the project that call in some way the presence of the main public spaces of the archaeological city and work on this boundary, giving a thickness to the limit and putting inside some new buildings, some figures able to represent the new entrances to the archaeological city, and in some way new figures in this thickness that is now natural. Looking at some composition by Malievich, so starting from the west, this is the idea to put on the limit of the contemporary city some alignment of the archaeological city and some building of services for the archaeological area. Here you can see the relationship with the difference in level of the archaeological city related to the contemporary city. Some images. And this is the second section where there is an important necropolis of the Roman city that we decided to cover to protect the monuments and to design a new device of entrance to the archaeological city in a very relevant point. I'm going to the end with some images. In order to say that probably what we would like to do, quoting Richard Sennett, that say that a limit is a place where something ends definitively, while a boundary is a place where something different can exchange. We decided to transform a limit between the archaeological city and the contemporary city in a boundary when contemporary city and the archaeological city can dialogue each other. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bardzo dziękuję.